Welcome to my channel. Let's go ahead and jump right in. On the left side, you'll see the final image that we're going to draw pop up. It's an urban style street side store. So there's that final image. And we're going to start with a mechanical pencil. I'm using a 0.5 millimeter. I like the thinner lead. And I'm just going to block in some generic shapes. As you can see, my lines aren't straight. That's a little secret. They don't have to be straight. We'll refine those later. But something else you'll notice I'm doing is I'm dropping down some points for the windows. And what that's going to do is help me connect those lines so I have a little bit of a straighter line. And you're going to see me do that for the rest of the windows. And I'm also shifting my hand position so that I can draw a straighter line. That frees up my wrist to make those movements. Now I'm using some lines to draw down the building, and that's just going to help me align the next row of windows. Whenever possible, don't be afraid to draw all over your artwork. We'll erase those later. Those lines won't matter. I'm going to continue to block in some shapes here. We're going to work with the awning of the building down to the lower portion. Again, you don't have to be precise. I'm very loose here. You can see I'm kind of going over the lines a little bit. And in a second here, you're going to notice something. I'm actually using my computer as a reference. So I have my reference photo up on my computer screen, but what I forgot to do is I forgot to turn off the sleep on my computer screen. So my computer shuts off, and watching this in playback, I realized that the lights turn off too. So that computer screen is casting a light onto my canvas. Lesson learned. I'll fix that for the next time. All right, so now I'm working down at the bottom of the building, and you can see I'm just drawing the apron, the sidewalk. Again, everything here is loose, and I'm really not going to put too much effort into drawing much more detail other than blocking out the shapes. And right now, I am ready to go. I've switched over to the pen, and I want to warn you, I had a tight grip on this pen. This one is a little bit out of ink, and when I draw on the side, it didn't quite get as much of a deeper, darker line that I was looking for. So I did a little bit of a death grip on it, and I'm holding the pen upright, and unfortunately, that means I'm blocking the view. So there's a little bit of here that you can't see me actually draw, but again, I want to point out the lines that you can see. I have a light touch as well with the pen. I'm a little more careful to draw a straighter line, but the lines are still light, and if you look really closely, they're wobbly. I'm not trying to be precise here. Drawing is not about precision. It's all about how you feel and about trying to get the general idea of that shape. The great thing is that if you have enough general lines down that mimic the shape, the overall picture is going to look like your reference photo. It's a great thing. I'm not really too concerned about being extra precise. I'm going to jump down here and draw the vending machine. This one is kind of interesting because I decided to actually add some detail. Now, normally I would switch over and use a different fine liner. Right now I'm using it's the 05 micron fine liner. I would probably go down to an 02 or even an 005. Those are great for small detail, but that wasn't the purpose of this drawing. I didn't really want to go for much detail. I was looking for more of a general sketch. Now you saw me drop down a plant. I'll explain the plant in a second. I made a mistake on that, and I'll explain a common error here in a second. But I'm moving over, and you can see I am drawing this little banner, this little pylon. I added this as a last second detail. I wanted to add something there to balance out that vending machine. And you'll notice that I actually extended the sidewalk, the sketch of the sidewalk, to fit that pylon on the left. So here I'm starting to draw the plants. Let's talk about the plants. When you draw something, you usually have a picture in your head of what you want to draw. There goes the lights again. In this case, when you're drawing from a reference, you should be trying to draw from what you see, not what's in your head. For example, if I ask you to draw a banana, you picture a banana, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to draw the banana the same way. However, if you drew a picture of a banana from a photo reference, those lines are going to be different. And that's what's going on here with that plant. I got lazy. Instead of drawing what was on the reference photo, I just drew the couple plants that were in my head. So looking back at this, I don't think the plants were as representational as they could have been, but that was my mistake. And again, even artists get lazy, but that's just a warning. Take the time, try to match your lines or the general suggestion of lines to your reference art. Now, I do a pretty good job with the rest of it. That was the only time I really got lazy. Even in here, I'm actually I'm actually starting to draw the inside of the store. Now, this gets interesting because there's so much detail, and I knew I didn't want to capture all that detail, but I am using the reference. I'm not trying to picture what should be there and draw it. I'm actually using the reference, and I'm literally just adding texture. There's a lot of texture, so rather than trying to pick up on the fine detail, I'm looking at the image, the reference photo as a whole, and looking at where the texture is. And there's a lot of boxes and books or cans on the shelf, so I'm just making lines to suggest that texture. Now, at this point, I'm going to move on to the windows. Again, my hand is going to start blocking the windows. My apologies. I will consider that when I create my next one. But same thing goes here. I am drawing very deliberately so that my lines are straight, and I'm actually giving up the ability to draw a clean line for the ability to make this line straight. So that's why you'll see the windows kind of look a little shaky. This is meant to be a sketch. The entire photo, as you can see on the left side, when complete, is gonna look great. Now, what I'm drawing is the frames of the windows. These are actually called mullions. Technical term. I actually used to do 3D architecture renderings. These mullions kind of help separate the panes of glass, and through the glass, we can see a hint of curtains, so you'll start to see me draw some curtains here in a minute. Now, some of the curtains are open, and one of the windows is open, so you will see me on the bottom right window. You can see where I've added a little bit darker area to insinuate that there is a curtain open or that we're looking into a darker room. And I'm going to do the same thing at the top here. And this is where I'm actually starting to draw the curtains. And you'll notice that I have drawn some lines toward the top of the windows, and I'll fill those in a second, but that's going to be the shadow that the window is causing. The sunlight is casting a shadow onto the building, and you'll notice that this marquee that I have to the left is going to cast a shadow. Those windows, they're going to cast a shadow. So I'm paying attention to where all the shadows are at this point, and I'm starting to fill those in right now. Now it's a matter of continuing to draw lines to insinuate the idea of a curtain. I'll continue that here. And then when I wrap this up, I'm going to get into the windowsills. And this is where I actually will draw two lines on top of another. That's just going to make that line a little extra thicker and give the impression of a shadow underneath that windowsill. That's going to give it some more depth. Again, playing with the thickness and thinness of lines can help you really provide that texture and detail to an image when you're really not putting that much effort into the detail. We have some corrugated metal at the top. I don't know why, but I really get a kick out of drawing lines. It's really soothing to me. I'm just trying to add some ideas of some rust or some water spotting toward that corner. And now I'm going to move over to the marquee sign, and I'm just drawing some vertical lines to represent the shading on the side, and then we're going to add the actual shadow that that marquee sign reflects or casts onto the building here. And I'm using horizontal lines. There's a lot of different shading techniques. I just wanted to keep this a little bit more geometrical, so I am drawing horizontal lines here. And then you'll notice what we're going to do in a second. There goes my light. What we're going to do in a minute is we're going to go and start shading in some of the rest of the scene where I think it needs it. For example, the storefront at the bottom of the building. I'm just wrapping up some detail work, and then I'm going to add a little line down here at the bottom of that vending machine. That's just going to make it look like that vending machine is kind of sitting off the ground a little bit, which it is. And after adding a little bit of detail touch-ups to the bottom, I'm going to now start adding some more detail to that storefront, and this is where I am going to start drawing my horizontal and vertical lines to represent the shading of the storefront. This part, for whatever reason I mentioned earlier, is very satisfying to me. I sometimes will draw random quick sketches just so I can shade them. I like the way it comes together with these lines. I like to experiment with different styles of shading as well. The pen really matters in the sense that sometimes I find not so soothing to draw these touch lines, and other pens are really gratifying when I'm drawing this type of shading detail. And we're getting close to wrapping it up. I'm just going to touch up some bottom here and make it look a little rougher, make my lines look rougher toward the bottom. add a little bit of texture. And then I'm kind of getting an idea of the reference photo of what's next. And I realize that I'm pretty much done. All I need to do now is kind of draw that texture that's on the face of the building. Now, I will point out that I'm drawing these straight lines, but I know that I'm not going to be able to continue to draw that straight line all the way up the building. So I jumped ahead and I draw another line. I'm actually using the windowsills to give me the idea of what a parallel line is. And you'll see me jump up here again. Then I'll just draw down to match. And basically I'm sandwiching those lines so that I keep them straight. I'm really bad at getting those lines off center, off parallel. And then in a second here, you'll notice that that top of the building looks kind of flat. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little cap to it with a little more detail and just a simple extra line with a little bit of dots to give it that texture. And there, I'm pretty much done. The only thing left now is to erase my line work, and that's it. You can see how the final image turned out. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this.